Hey everybody, this is Ryan with West Coast Stamp Company and stampcollectors.us. I created a few videos reviewing stamp certificates I received back on stamps that I sent in for authentication. Several of you asked if I could make a video about the stamp certification process, so here you go. In this video, I'm going over the certification process. I won't get into stamp grading, but I do plan on creating a separate video on that process in the future. So what is stamp certification? Just like with many other popular collecting hobbies like sports cards, comic books, coins, autographs, and the like, stamps can be certified by experts. These experts inspect stamps to determine their authenticity and their condition, and then they provide you with a physical certificate that states their findings. Now, why would you want to do this? There are three main reasons why people get their stamp certified. The first is to confirm the identity of a stamp. Many stamp designs have different varieties that, to the untrained eye, look identical. These varieties can differ greatly in value, from pennies to thousands of dollars. The second reason is to determine the condition of a stamp. Like with most collectibles, condition is everything. You might have a rare and expensive stamp, but if it has damage, it could significantly lower its value. Common types of damage to stamps include tears, creases, and thins, where the paper on the stamp is thinned in its thickness, usually due from pulling the stamp off an envelope or an album page. Stamps are also notoriously altered. Common alterations include reperforating, where the holes on the stamps are repunched, usually to make a stamp look better centered, or to remove cancellations along an edge to make it look unused, or to remove a fault from a stamp like a small tear or a thin. And the third reason that people get their stamps certified are to hold their value and improve their saleability. When it comes to pricier stamps, a buyer is going to be more confident purchasing a stamp with a certificate versus one without, even if there's no question that the stamp is real or sound, because several stamps are often faked and some damage or alterations can be almost undetectable, even by advanced collectors. Now, this doesn't mean that you should certify all your stamps. I personally only certify stamps when they meet two conditions. One, will the certificate improve the saleability of the stamp? And two, will the cost of the certificate be recouped in the sale of the stamp? Let's talk about the first point. There are many rare stamps that are often faked, such as Scott 315 or several of the Washington Franklin stamps. Most collectors who spend a significant amount of money on stamps won't buy these issues without a certificate of authenticity. Therefore, if you have one of these stamps, you'll need a certificate just to be able to sell it in the future. I would just advise you that the more research and education you have about how to correctly identify a rare variety of a stamp, the better. Sending these stamps in for certification is a gamble, so you need to be prepared to lose money on the cost of the certification service should it end up not being genuine. This means that you've done your homework and all signs point that the stamp may really be authentic. Such research may include correctly measuring the stamp or its design, and learning how to identify alterations like reperfs and trim perfs. Certificates can also improve the saleability of more rare or pricey stamps. For example, take Scott No. 1. Many collectors strive to one day own the first stamp issued by the United States. They may have waited several years and saved up their money to finally own this stamp. Having a certificate of authenticity can boost their confidence when buying and allow the stamp to sell more quickly versus not having a certificate. Now, to my second requirement, the cost of the certificate must be recouped in the sale of the stamp for it to make sense to go through the certification process. Stamp certificates minimally cost between $25 to $35 depending on the expertising service that you use. On top of that, they will charge a small percentage of the catalog value, usually 1 to 5% if over a certain amount. However, they usually have a maximum fee of $300 to $400. Let's say you have a stamp that normally sells for $20. If you pay $25 to certify it, you'll be in the whole $5. So it doesn't make sense to certify it. Here's another example. I had a Scott 292 that wasn't centered very well and had a noticeable crease. I paid $100 for it and sold it without a certificate for $150. So I had a profit of $50. If I paid $30 for a certificate, perhaps it would have sold for $175. Minus the cost of the certificate, I would only have had a profit of $45, so it wasn't worth getting certified. How do you know how much a stamp will sell for, and how much will adding a certificate increase the sale price? Unfortunately, there isn't a one-size-fits-all. This knowledge comes with experience and time. The more experience you have, the more likely you'll be able to determine if getting a certificate will be worth the investment or not. Again, I go back to stressing education before getting a certificate. I've spent hundreds of hours watching auctions, not buying, just watching them on eBay, Hipstamp, and even the large stamp auction houses, just to get a sense of how much stamps were selling for in their various conditions. Okay, let's talk about how to get a certificate for your stamp should you decide to move forward. First off, it's important to know for United States stamps, there are 5 recognized expertising services that provide certificates. Professional Stamp Experts, known as PSE, the Philatelic Foundation, known as PF, the American Philatelic Society, also known as APS, the Philatelic Stamp Authentication and Grading, also known as PSAG, and William Crowe. It's important to only get certificates from these organizations because they're trusted by the majority of stamp collectors and auction houses. I've seen some certificates from other organizations in the past that turned out to be scams. They certified their own stamps that they were selling to uneducated wealthy people as an investment opportunity. I may do a video on this in the future. Submitting your stamps for certification is as easy as going to their websites and following the steps. All of these stamp expertising services have websites except for William Crowe, but I'll put his contact information in the description. I generally use William Crowe for all of my ungraded certificates. He's a bit cheaper than the other services, plus he provides you with all of his findings, and then you can choose which stamps that you want to submit to get certified, which can save you a ton of money, versus the other organizations that will charge you for a certificate regardless of what the findings are. Now, there is a downside to Crowe. He is a one-man show, so there is some risk involved. For example, if he became unavailable all of a sudden, your stamps may be stuck with him until whoever he puts in charge of his estate sends them back. This is what happened when the stamp expertiser William Weiss passed away. I used to get certs from him, and then one day I heard that he had passed away, and it took a few months before I got my stamps back. Now, the 4 other services are ran by more than one person, so there's some insurance that your stamps won't fall off the face of the earth should something happen to one of them. In either case, if you're concerned about mailing off your stamps for certification, then I suggest insuring them at a value that you're comfortable with. Just make sure to factor in the cost of insurance when determining if you'll recoup the certification costs when deciding to get a stamp certified. But if you're one of those people who just can't come to terms that the majority of goods and valuables are shipped all around the country every day, and nearly everything you own at some point was in transit through a shipping service, seriously, I order everything through the mail these days. We've even sent my wife's wedding ring back and forth for repairs, and I regularly buy $30,000 to $50,000 stamp collections every month, and they're shipped to me without any issue. That's not to say that issues don't happen or won't happen. So if you're concerned, just insure your shipment. Plus, the expertising services have their own insurance to help protect stamps when they're shipped back to you. Now, when shipping your stamps to get a certificate, make sure to include any submission forms they require, as mentioned on their websites. When it comes to packaging your stamps, make sure that you put them in something that will prevent them from shifting around or bending or folding during transit. I like to use these rigid 9x7 cardboard mailers. Also, make sure to protect your stamps from water damage. I had a customer once who said my package fell into water. Luckily, I put all the stamps that I mail into Ziploc bags to prevent water damage. And his stamp was undamaged. Here's what my setup looks like. First, I place a stamp into a dealer card. I like these plastic ones from Safe Stamp Supply. I'll put a link in the description. Next, for added rigidness and protection, I place the dealer card into a thick plastic sleeve that's designed for covers. Safe also has these. Then I put it into a 5x8 Ziploc bag to prevent water damage, and then into the rigid cardboard mailer. I should note that most services want you to put each stamp into a separate holder or dealer card. So if you submit multiple stamps, you'll need to do this to each one of them separately. However, they can all go into the same Ziploc bag together and ship together. Make sure you ship with a service that offers signature tracking, so you can make sure that it arrives safely along with any optional insurance. Okay, that's it. All we need to do now is wait. Turnaround times vary between each service provider, but in general, you can expect anywhere between 30 to 60 days for your order to be processed. So just make sure you take that into consideration if you are certifying a stamp that you just purchased, because there might be a limited time that you can return the stamp. Your certificates will be included with your stamps when they're returned to you. I should note that just because your stamps are certified doesn't necessarily mean that they're bulletproof. I've had a few times where an expertising service wrongly identified a stamp. Or one certificate stated that a stamp was reperfed, and when I submitted it to a different expertiser, it was noted as not being reperfed. Stamp experts are human and they do make mistakes, so keep that in mind. If you disagree with the results of a certificate, the best thing to do is contact the service and discuss their findings, or send it to one of the other expertising services for a second opinion. Again, just take into consideration the additional certificate fees that you'll get. If you have a super expensive stamp, having it certified by multiple entities may make sense. Like with most things, you won't learn until you try. So if you're wanting to get a stamp certified, then I suggest jumping in and getting your feet wet. The more you do, the more you'll learn. I've sent in many stamps that I ended up losing money on, but I gained knowledge on what to send in and what not to. So all was not lost. I hope you found this video educational or inspiring. If you did, please be sure to give it a like. That really helps me continue to make videos like these, and it doesn't cost you anything. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Until then, best of luck and happy collecting.